Welcome to another Saturday night and taking it to the nub. I'm your host, Boston Jimmie. This is my co-host, Quinton Brown. We're waiting for our guest, Steve Saka. Yes, we do have a Saka Swatch sighting.
Oh my goodness!
Thank you very much. We were looking for you, and everybody says, "Have we had a sighting?"
I'm so sorry.
All right.
Two problems. The first problem is
there are no problems, only solutions.
I have a very old truck. It has like 200,000 miles on it, and it broke down yet again. And then the second problem is I set the time on my watch wrong this morning. So I think right now it's 6:03. And it's 7:03 or 7:04. So I apologize to everybody.
Well, the first solution is get yourself a new truck.
Yeah, well, I actually have already finally gotten a new one, but it's still, I'm too cheap. I keep driving the old one. Like, why put miles on the new one? I got an old truck. I should just keep using it.
If it works, it works. And eventually when the crossover says no more because the cost of fixing it and the time without it outweighs the cost of a new one.
Is I just got it back a week ago from it being fixed. The fuel pump died on it. I don't even know what's wrong with it now. It's I'll deal with that later.
So anyway, let me reintroduce you because we were saying we're waiting to have a Saka Swatch sighting.
I need to post on Facebook. This is even happening. You did this like really cool graphic, and I didn't even do that. I'm like such a deadbeat.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry. That's my wife does that cool stuff.
It's cool. She did a good job.
That's her thing. But anyway, this is everybody who doesn't know Steve Saka. This is the man himself. Steve is let me just tell you what Steve says about himself. Okay, I'm not even going to say this. I'm going to read what Steve says about himself and see if Steve knows where this comes from. Steve is an experienced leader with proven ability to pinpoint opportunities, assemble and motivate high-performance teams, and accomplish breakthrough objectives. He is direct and forceful, yet flexible and adaptable, and able to achieve and exceed goals. He champions ideas into action and transforms concepts into revenue generators.
Wow, where is that? That's some shit I wrote on a resume. Where the hell is that from?
See, nobody else calls that stuff out. You like wrote that a long time ago, man. That's on your LinkedIn profile that you never use.
Oh, I never use it. And I actually didn't even write the LinkedIn thing. My assistant wrote it.
I'm going to steal that. I might, if I ever need a new job in engineering, I know how to get it now.
Because that does sound like some resume shit there.
It certainly is. Let me before we get too deep into this, so I was trying to figure out what I want to smoke, and I pulled out a few things that I was trying to wrap my head around. So of course I've got an Umbagog. Okay.
Always a solid choice.
And then I got 3 of the original Stillwell Stars.
Yeah, that's a 50-50 shot. It's a love it or hate it kind of equation, right? It works for you. It works great for you. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you.
If I remember correctly, I kind of like the aromatic, and then there's the navy and the English.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of drinking an IPA right now. I think I'd go with the Umbagog.
And I'm trying to figure out how to share the link to the show, and I'm having no success at this at all.
How to share the link? What link? The Facebook link?
Isn't it live? Don't people get to watch, or are we just in a vacuum?
Yeah, you just got to tell them to go to the Facebook Boston Jimmie page. That's where it's live.
Not the Stogie Press page.
No, it's on the Boston Jimmie page. That's why I put that link in there all the time.
I got it.
Let people know. Because people got confused with that too, and everybody needs a little help. So while you're doing that, I just want to I don't know if you got this yet, but I'm going to cut this with the Baller.
I just got a Baller sent to me. I received it yesterday.
Have you used it yet?
I have.
It's badass, isn't it?
It's definitely interesting. Let me say that.
It is most definitely the most innovative cutter I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I want to use it more first off, it's very cool and it's very unique, but I want to use it for a while before I really have an opinion about it, because look, the guy's going into the trade show, right? So he doesn't need whatever my hot take is, whether it's real. Well, I guess if it's super good, he'd want that, but I haven't used it enough to say it's super good, but I cut like 3-4 cigars. There's a little bit of a learning curve. For me personally, I found it's best to lay it flat on the table and then hold the cigar down with firm pressure and then do the cut. That's what I've already kind of noticed. But it's definitely, it gives you a great draw, the cut you get out of it. And I've never seen a cutter like it.
So great draw.
It's definitely different and it's definitely unique.
And definitely, I think it has a, I like the feeling of the divot on my tongue as opposed to a
I agree with that.
A V cut. A V cut, I never liked the V cut.
Yeah, well, you know me and V cutters. I'm anti V cutters. So
there you go. Join the club.
Yeah, I'm definitely I'm not in the V cut camp. Everyone that's listened to me for a little while has probably heard me rail against V cutters.
Good. So do you know Q up in the corner there?
I've seen him before, but I don't know Quinton, to be honest with you. I mean, we probably have met before, but I don't even know if that's true.
It is true, you know. So you're not.
This is where I end up saying something really racist, so I got to stop right now, right? They all look the same, right?
Jeez. So there was a whole bald white guys would go.
Exactly.
I saw a guy.
And that's the thing that happens all the time. You meet all these great people, and do you have any idea how many overweight, middle-aged guys I meet that smell bad? That's my whole life, man.
Do you know the guy at? I was at the Florida Bond Smoker, and there's a guy sitting at a table who looks like he's your doppelganger.
Yeah, poor John Crabtree, because he's like 100 pounds lighter than me. I feel bad.
Right, he is.
He should not get identified as me. So go ahead, Quinn. When did we meet?
So the last time me and you bumped into each other was PCA 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, it would have been 3 years ago then.
Well, yeah. Now, actually, 3 years ago. It was the PCA after the pandemic, when the people were walking around with the Catwoman outfits, telling you to put your mask on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, was that TPE and not PCA?
Both. We attended both together.
Okay, got it. And give me another frame of reference.
Another frame of reference.
Yeah, like what company are you with? What store? Are you a media guy? I mean,
I'm a media guy. I'm a picture guy. So I recently linked up with Boston Jimmie here. I've been co-hosting for a couple of months. But before that, I have taken a lot of pictures at a lot of different events and been around that way. So you probably bumped into me there as well.
I have to tell you, my life is so messy. I can't even tell you the last time I saw my kids. I mean, it is so crazy how insane everything is right now. I mean,
it's got to be nuts right now because you are getting ready to go to PCA in the middle of a holiday week coming up.
Oh, I have to tell you, PCA, my wife is nuts right now. This doing the trade show the weekend after a 4th of July weekend, it so sucks as a manufacturer. You got so much that you have to do. And like I can tell you right now, like we just got notified today that none of our samples are going to make it to the trade show in time by UPS.
Because there's a holiday on Monday.
Well, it's a combination of UPS sucking right now, right? Which everything is sucking. And you're adding a 3-day holiday weekend in the middle of it. You know what I mean? It's a disaster. And you have to deliver everything to the trade show between the 6th and the 8th. So you have a very small window that you're allowed to get anything to land there. And we haven't shipped anything to any of our customers in the last 2 months that there hasn't been an exception with. You know what I mean? every package we send out, we get an exception notice. None of them are getting delivered when they're scheduled to be delivered, period. It's just the way it is. And it's so impossible to try to coordinate under normal circumstances with the 3-day holiday weekend in front of it. But now with the way UPS and FedEx and all those guys are working, it's even an extra challenge. And I think we're all, and the other thing that I think a lot of people are going to have an experience with, I fly all the time, right? I have not had a single flight go off without a hitch since TPE. That flight on the return, I got stranded in Vegas for 2 extra days. So that means since the end of January, I've not had one flight happen the way it's supposed to happen. It's going to be a total clusterfuck. I just, I'm so looking forward to it. Vegas, baby.
Tell me how you really feel, Steve.
Oh, it's just, I'm so tired of it. I just really am. I mean,
so Steve, what's your favorite airlines and what's your least?
They all suck. It's not a good airline. They don't exist. I mean, it just matters on the moment. I was ranting recently about American, but you could have put United there. You could have put Delta. You could have put any of them. They're just a mess right now. I mean, look, actually, I do have a favorite. I have a least favorite airline. My least favorite airline is Avianca out of El Salvador. That's the one that flies to Nicaragua. They suck extra bone. Okay, so they get an extra achievement award for being the absolute worst I've ever dealt with. And the best airline, and I'm going to find out how this is going to go this summer. My favorite airline is Iceland Air. I love Iceland Air to Europe. They got such a great system. They only fly out of like maybe 15 or 16 cities in the United States. And then they fly to like 15, 16 cities in Europe. And all the flights go through Reykjavik. So every plane comes from the US, lands in Iceland, and then you exchange to your European flight. And it's just such a clean, simple system because they're basically running the same flights every single day between the US and Iceland and between Iceland and Europe.
So you go through security at Iceland.
You actually clear customs in Iceland on the way back to
and they've got that all wired.
They got that all wired. It's just, I mean,
expected.
Now let me say this, maybe it's changed since COVID because I haven't gone to Dortmund. This will be the first year that Dortmund's going to open back up since the pandemic. So maybe it'll be different, but that is the way it used to work. You would actually clear immigration coming back in the United States in Iceland. So you didn't have to deal with that on the US side. And that was super convenient too. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah,
that's an interesting.
And you know, the other thing I'll say that's really good about them is the ticket prices are fantastic. I don't know what they're going to be because I haven't booked mine, but normally pre-pandemic, I could buy a business class seat to Europe typically for between $1,900 and $2,400.
Really?
Yeah. I think they're subsidized by the Iceland government because they also have something else that's extra cool. You can spend up to a week in Iceland without them. You can schedule a layover in Iceland that's up to a week, where with normal airlines, they won't let you go beyond 24 hours.
So you could just hang out in Iceland for a
so
week.
You can actually say, hey, you know what? I want to check out Iceland. Let me go see some glaciers and some whatever, caribou. Okay. And a hot spring. And so I think, so it kind of like gives you a way to be a tourist in Iceland without it costing you any extra airfare.
Have you done that at all?
Of course not. But I always say eventually I will.
Okay.
Someday I will.
A good place to spot some Sasquatch up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think those are Yetis though, right? Maybe Yetis.
Those are Yetis. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this PCA debacle, you're not going to have so let me ask this question.
I might have it. Who knows? I mean, it's a crapshoot.
Are you going to have the Sasquatch poo?
Yes, that has arrived. Of course. That's cigars haven't arrived, but the Sasquatch poo is there. Of course, you know, that's.
So there are people out here that know, and there are people that have no clue what Sasquatch poo is. So before you explain it, let me ask you, have you cornered the market on that? Did you buy the company? Did you buy every bag that exists, every ounce of Sasquatch poo?
Let me say
this. Did you know they existed?
I didn't know they existed until Chris Duque posted a photo of it. And then I looked at Amazon and I saw how much it cost. And I'm like, oh, that costs too much. So let me just call the company and see what it would cost for me to get like 300 bags of this stuff.
How many Mi Coladas did they want?
Let me say this guy, I think it was the biggest order he has ever had in his life because he was so excited that there was somebody that actually wanted to order 300 bags of this shit.
Now, explain what Sasquatch poo is to people that don't know.
It's this company that makes all these crazy cotton candies, and they just brand them, you know, unicorn poo and Sasquatch poo and all of this kind of stuff. So it's just really, if you like cotton candy, it's okay, right?
It's black cherry.
Yeah, it's black cherry flavored. I mean, it's
brown.
Yeah, but it's brown. It's the color of shit. Yeah, and I thought it was funny. You know what I mean? It's something stupid. I don't think most people will even eat it. They'll probably take a taste of it and then throw it away. Some people will take it home for their kids, you know what I mean, and give it to them. But I do know that it's going to get a lot of photos, right? How can you not take a photo of the Sasquatch poo?
And what Dunbarton cigar would this pair with best?
Oh, only the very best unicorn. You cannot eat Sasquatch poo if you're not smoking $100 cigar. You gotta elevate your game. Yeah. It is so funny when you think about it. I mean, I'm really like super serious about the cigars and, you know, the product and the branding. And I'm so careful, you know, try to make sure everything is the way I want it to be. And yet I keep doing these crazy, stupid things that just really don't fit the company image. And it's like, it's kind of weird if you think about it, right? I mean, the stupid Saka Squatch statues, you know, I don't know. It's just kind of weird, but I don't know. I think there's places that you can be lighthearted and fun and it not detract from the product. I think you can separate. You don't have to be Hermes with just always like, you know what I mean? It doesn't always have to be a size 2 model sporting that bag.
Because you're flexible and adaptable.
It says so on LinkedIn.
It says so.
Yes,
exactly.
I gotta go check that out. Literally,
breaking ground here, Q. Nobody talks to Steve with these things. What are you kidding me? Let's do get a little serious for a second. I don't even know how serious this can go, but you at PCA. You had put out a post talking about there's a lot of brands out there putting out a lot of different things, sometimes 4 or 5 different blends. You're kind of sticking to the norm that you've been doing.
Yeah.
But you also came out with a cigar for small batch.
Right. Barbara
recently. Barbara Amarillo.
Yeah, I've owed them that for 2 years. I've been so.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that one, because that's something that's new, right?
Yeah, that's a 5 5/8 by 46, kind of a Cuban Corona Gorda size. It's got a pigtail finish on it. It's you know, I've been working on so many other cigars. I actually got to look up my own damn notes on it just to make sure I'm right. I don't want to misspeak. I mean, it's made at Noxa. Let me find there. How about that? I actually know where my files are for a change.
Deep into that. That was actually going to be my next question for you. You have so many cigars that you work on. How do you keep up with all? I mean, it's like being an artist that's got a whole catalog full of songs, and people are like, "Hey, you want to rap this song for me?" And you're like, "How the hell do I remember the lyrics?"
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, and that's why, and particularly now, because obviously I'm thinking about Mike Rita Black, and I'm thinking about Bewitched, and I'm thinking about all of that. So yes, so that blend is a Criollo sun-grown Nicaraguan wrapper. It's got a Jalapa C98 seed binder, and then it's got 3 different Nicaraguan Visos, and then it's got 2 Ligeros. It's got a C98 hybrid Ligero from the Dominican, and it's got a U.S. Connecticut broadleaf Ligero also. There's no Seiko in the cigar at all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's strong, but I aged it a bit longer, so I kind of notched down because it was just too peppery. You know what I mean? I didn't want it to be abusive. So I'm really, I think it's going to be, look, I never know how these things are going to be received. And particularly when I make these kind of limited batch kind of exclusives, whether they be U-boat or frog juice or anything, I'm always trying to make them distinctive from the other cigars in my line. And that can be problematic because, look, I put a lot of effort into making the cores because that's how my bread is buttered. Mi Querida, Umbagog, Sin Compromiso, Sobra Mesa. That's the stuff that's on my retailer shelves every day. That is where they make that's where I make my money. I don't make money when I do these 500 box things. They're really quite small, but at the same time, I also can't just mail it in on them because I also know that probably the most loyal of the Saka junkies out there are going to be the ones that go out of their way to try it. And so I have an obligation to make sure that it's really good. And so I put a lot of effort into these, but it also means that I have to sometimes get a little fringy when it comes to the blend. It's kind of like Don Derma. I think Don Derma is a fantastic cigar, but I don't think that Don Derma is a fantastic cigar for everybody. And that's the same way I feel about Frog Juice. And look, I say that about all my blends, but I think when you start getting into these more esoteric, these one-offs, these unique blends, I feel compelled to make them good, but I also feel compelled to make them different, where I'm not just taking a Mi Querida and making a different size and saying it's something special, right? So that kind of forces me to, go a little bit outside my normal comfort zone, where I don't know that Barbara Amaria could be a whole brand that could I don't know that the blend could live on the shelf as an entire brand. I might. It'll be interesting to see what the original, what the first feedback is coming from those. But I mean, it has a, it's got a peppery bite, but it's really tempered because of how long it's been in the cool rooms, and it really kind of lets the flavor kind of blossom a bit, and it's got like this creaminess. But yet, if you retrohale it, you will you'll get that pepper. I mean, the pepper is unavoidable. And the other thing I would say to consumers that buy it, just take a moment before you light it and just smell the cigar. It just has the most perfect sweet tobacco smell, that smell that you get when you walk into the cool rooms in a factory. It's like literally, I mean, I wish I could figure out how to make that a cologne, because I would wear that shit all the time. I mean, because it just has such a great scent to it. It really
now,
is.
how many of these did you make for small batch?
I made approximately 500 boxes. I think I shipped them 490 because I kept 10 for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, it's like all of them. They're
available.
It's small
July
batch
8th.
for small batch.
They're available July 8th, I believe.
Yeah, July 8th is the date that they're going to drop them.
Okay.
So
check those out, everybody. July 8th on smallbatch.com, cigars.com. Most of you know what that is, because I know you've been buying some from there anyway.
I don't even know if they're going to end up actually being offered for sale to the public, because I think that they're going to probably push them out to their club members first, because they have a lot of club members, right? And it also has kind of, I know that, look, I don't set the prices that they sell things for. They're in California, so they already have higher prices to begin with. And I know because they think the most of their club members are going to buy them. I think the club members get like a built-in discount, but I didn't give them a discount on the product because I'm not a cheap date. So I think it kind of pushes the MSRP up, knowing that they think that most of them are already going to be. Look, at this point, I know nothing. I made the cigars. They have the cigars. The cigars don't suck. July 8th, it's supposed to happen, but the actual inner workings and the details.
But the check cleared.
Yeah, check always clears.
There you go.
I don't ship anything without cash, man.
We're not gonna skip over this though, Steve. You said you're not. So you're telling me that you're not a Burger King date?
What?
You're not a Burger King date. You said you're not a cheap date.
No. I'm not. I've never been. Even if I was at Burger King, I ain't cheap. Look at me, man. I'm a double extra value meal every trip through the drive-thru, man. I even cost you $22 at Burger King.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break. While I'm doing this, Steve, maybe you could just line up real quick the rundown at PCA. We don't have to go too deep into it because people have seen posts and all of that. We just kind of give a fast rundown.
Yeah, absolutely.
On
Be
what
my
you're
pleasure.
doing. And then I want to dig into I have a really interesting question for you that I think nobody may have ever asked you.
Well, that'll be unique.
And I'll say, well, it'll be unique. Yes, I guarantee you. So with that said, let me go share the screen. All right. Today's show is brought to you by Bocock Cigars. Bocock Brothers is a new and active brand founded by two Honduran brothers, Brian and Douglas Bocock. The brand zeroes in on those folks that are looking for easy to smoke cigars inspired by unusual circumstances. Very importantly named after the very interesting and imitable last name, Bocock. They're going to be featuring the signature edition as their latest release, which is produced at the AJ Fernandez Cigar Factory, comes in a 10-count box with an Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper, Nicaraguan Habano binder, and a Nicaraguan filler, and it'll be expressed in 3 vitolas. If you've seen my reviews on Bocock in the past, I'm looking forward to see what the brothers have next. You can check them out at www.bocockbrothers.com. Today's show. It always does that to me.
Get ready, because Drew Estate is back and better than ever, with a party so big that only the Lone Star State can contain it. Music, spirits, mouth-watering barbecue, cigars galore, and so much more. It'll be the most epic shindig there ever was. Barn Smoker presents Savage Feast, October 22nd at the South Fork Ranch, Dallas, Texas. Get your tickets now at barnsmoker.com.
And yes, you do want to go to those Barn Smokers this year. 25th anniversary, delayed by 1 year. They're pulling out all the stops, swag, cigars, food, drink. They're having a massive party in multiple states, ending in that Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. Today's show is also brought to you by Platinum Nova Cigars, family-owned and operated premium cigar company where only the highest vintage tobacco and the most skilled hand workmanship go into the making of each Platinum Nova cigar. This results in a timeless blend of art and craftsmanship. The Nova brand and the family's work are a tribute and an honor to their grandfather to always remember him and his infinite passion for the finest cigars. Their love for cigars started with their grandfather, a dedicated master blender and entrepreneur in the cigar industry. So the next time you're looking for an exquisite cigar experience, pick up a Platinum Nova. You can check them out at Platinum Nova Cigars at www.novacigar.com and on their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter channels. Today's show is also brought to you by Rodriguez Cigars of Key West. The year 1947. The Rodriguez family began the masterful art of cultivating tobacco on their private plantation in the town of Siguane, Cuba. In 1952, the Finca Carmencita employed over 20 workers and grew over 120,000 pounds of tobacco annually. Of course, 8 years later, the Cuban government nationalized the plantation, and the Rodriguez family was forced to immigrate to the United States. 1971, the family found a new beginning on the beautiful island of Key West, Florida, and established the Rodriguez Cigar Factory in 1984. It is the oldest cigar manufacturer in the Florida Keys, preserving the historical cigar manufacturing industry that began in Key West in 1831. Of course, as the years pass, new generations of family members have expanded manufacturing operations to Nicaragua, and they're proud to be working with some of the finest tobacco in the world. Rodriguez cigars are exclusively constructed with vintage leaves that have been
hand-selected, aged, and constructed through the traditional Cuban manufacturing process. You can check them out at www.rodriguezcigarskeywest.com. If you're ever down in Key West, I'll say it again and again, you must take the $15 cigar factory tour, where you'll be able to go and learn all the history of the family and cigars on Key West, and you'll be able to bunch and roll your own cigar as a takeaway memento. And lastly, our show is brought to you by our friends at the Cigar Clowns group on Facebook. Cigar Clowns invites everyone to come along on their journey to find the perfect cigar. They know that it's probably an impossible journey because there's probably never a perfect cigar. But if you're lucky enough to get your hands on one of their limited releases, you know what's up. And if you haven't had one, just stay tuned to their page. And when a run drops, they go quickly. They have good conversation. They're great people. And smoking cigars doesn't get better. So they want to welcome all brothers and sisters of the leaf who share the same love as they do for cigars. With that, I'd like to come back to Steve. Without my sponsors, the show's always a little harder to do. All right. So PCA, what do you got? What's coming out?
Well, I'm kind of taking a different tact at PCA this year. I decided not to launch anything major or core-like. I feel as though the market's currently flooded with brands. I also am very happy with our current portfolio. Everything seems to be doing really well for most of our retailers, and we keep growing, and I don't really see any major holes. And I think that if I added something, I would end up having, they would probably end up wanting to take something away. You can only get so much shelf space. I mean, we all go to cigar stores, and which cigar store do you go that has free room on the shelves? The only ones that have free room on the shelves is because the owner's broke and he's going out of business. So I think it's going to be a really challenging year, particularly with the number of new releases. So what I decided to do is I decided to focus on doing this year some limited production, easy hits that are good for my retailers so that they can turn and flip them quickly and they won't have to give extra space to them. So the first one's already landed, it just started landing this month, which was the Bewitched. We're already taking reorders on that. So we'll be taking reorders on the Bewitched. And I love the Bewitched blend. I think it's, look, I don't want to prejudge, but I think it has a genuine shot at, it might be the first Moestra that makes it to the top of the top list, and a lot of top lists, because it's really, I think it's a really special cigar. And then the other thing we have is so that's been landing now in June. And we'll have more that'll come. We've already got like 5,000 boxes on reorder already, so it's looking like it's really super popular. Then the next thing that'll hit will be towards the tail end of July, probably mid-August. We'll have the Mickey Rita Black. That's the cigar I'm smoking now. This was always intended to be a 2024 project. It has a particular Honduran tobacco in it that I needed to get, listen to me, that I needed to have grown specifically for the project. And we did a pilot crop, and I have just enough of that pilot crop left to only make about 3,500 boxes. I won't be able to do the full Mickey Rita Black production until next year. So rather than let this tobacco just get old, and I know that sounds good, but if you're trying to launch a line, I don't want to be working with tobaccos that are 2 years older than the current tobaccos. It'll make it all too hodgepodgey. So I'm using the little bit that I have left from the pilot crop, and we're making it available to our retailers to introduce to their customers. And it comes in this 7.25 by 54. It's a really heavy blend, and some consumers out there are already familiar with it because this is the blend that I used last year in the JR 50th anniversary cigar, which they managed. It was actually their fastest seller. I think it sold out quicker than any of the other JR 50ths. And I think if you love Mickey Rita and you like Umbaga and you like heavy Maduros, I think this will really I think it'll really tickle that itch. The other thing that'll follow that is we then have the Stillwell Star Holiday Edition. I was always intending on doing this. It's an aromatic, but it doesn't have a sweet head on it like the other aromatic number 1 does. It's actually even a more, and again, this may be a stupid idea, but it's actually a more tempered aromatic blend. The aromatic and it's even lighter, and it's a totally different aromatic blend of pipe tobaccos. And I'm just kind of following the trend in the pipe industry. Pipe carvers every year make a holiday pipe that they make a special pipe that they carve and sell. And the pipe tobacco blenders typically make one pipe tobacco blend that they have as their holiday blend. And I just want to keep Stillwell Star following that kind of trajectory to stay in sync with the pipes. So every year, my intention is that there be a holiday release, but every year it would be entirely different. Like already, I know next year's holiday release is a significantly different cigar. It won't be an aromatic. At least here I'm sitting in July of the year before saying it won't be. I reserve the right to change my mind, but my current intention is for it to not be. And these will, so, we steal from the retailers in June, give them an easy sale. We give the retailer stuff in late July, early August. It'll be an easy sale. And then these will land in probably early November. I'd like to say late October, but right around that time frame. And it'll give them something for that too. And we're just, and this is one-time order. If they don't order it, they don't get it. It's not like we're going to get to the end of the year and there's going to be extras. No, it's going to be, this is what we have, this is what we got. Now I can only make so many. Cigars have actually already been made. So I have a limit as to how many. But if we get retailers that order too many, we'll take the big retailers, the guys that order 100 boxes, and we'll say, well, you're only getting 70. So that way I can give these other accounts over here boxes, but we'll work it out. And then the last thing is I'm going to do, I'm going to allow the retailers that want to do a special order for Todos Los Dias Más Fuerte, the thick Lonsdale. This is my favorite cigar in the line. I regretfully had to stop making it in 2020 due to tobacco limitations. It has one ingredient that's shared with another line that we have that is way more successful. So I had to pick which of my 2 children I liked the best, and it wasn't this one. The other one makes me more money and it makes my retailers more money. But I really love this blend, particularly in this size. And now I'm to the point that I feel comfortable that I have enough. I have more tobacco that'll be ready to go online in January. So I don't have these tobacco constraints. So I have enough tobacco that I could make a limited run production of this thick Lonsdale. And that'll be available to the retailers that order it. They'll get that delivered sometime in January. But it's, again, it's going to be one time. If they don't order it by the 29th of this month, they won't get it. And if I only sell 100 boxes of it, great, because I want to make 20 boxes for myself. Okay. If I sell 2,000 boxes, great. I'll make 2,020 boxes. That's kind of the way it is. And that's kind of the way I'm approaching this year's cycle. Look, Stillwell Star just started getting out in the market last November. So it's really effectively a new brand for 2022 already, right? We still have Sin Compromiso Paladin de Saka. The conversation about that, was that a 2022 or a 2023 brand, So, I mean, it's one of these things, but look, we're really blessed right now. We're doing so well. I mean,
So we have some questions from the audience.
Sure.
So let me go through a couple of them. The first one that came up when we were talking earlier was Chris Colter says, are there different techniques to aging different tobaccos, or is it mainly just a time issue with aging?
It's primarily a time issue. I mean, look, you can have some impact as to how you bale it, whether you bale it in cartons or whether you bale it in bales, and what the material is that you bale it. It can also have an impact at what the ambient environment is, whether the ambient environment be warmer or drier. But typically when you're storing tobaccos, you want them dry. You can't store wet tobaccos because they'll eventually just mold on you. So you really want the tobacco to be really, really pretty dry, too dry actually, too dry to handle almost. is what you want to have happen. But it's really more than anything else. It's really a time factor. And then the other thing that makes a difference is it's really important, too, if you have a lot of tobacco aging, is that you rotate your bales, because having them stacked on top of each other, the bottom bale will get pressure, and that can impact sometimes. That bale can almost start to do a little bit of like pressure fermentation on you. So you want to make sure that, every 60 to 90 days, you take those cartons are less of a problem because a carton is rigid. So carton is actually better. But if you're in a traditional style bale, whether it be burlap or a tercio or something like that, or a yaga, you want to move those bales to the top of the stack and kind of cycle them through so that you don't end up getting any of that kind of press fermentation going on. And the other thing too is, look, you're typically in an environment that's it's not air conditioned, right? So the bales of the hot at the top are sitting at a higher temperature than the bales at the floor level typically. So you also want to cycle them through the ambient temperature in the space over time.
Now, Erica Everett from Executive Sanford asked the question, and she's talking about the Stillwell Holiday here, will the presentation be the same size box?
Yeah, it's identical. The only difference that you'll be is the little wood block will explain what the holiday year 2000 is. And then as an example in this cigar, these will be banded with this white band, because I guess to signify snow for the holidays. Doesn't exactly work in Florida, but you get so no, I'm not making special unique boxes. Maybe sometime in the future, but right now it's such a challenge to just get boxes made that for me to say, hey, I want to make a special custom box for a few thousand boxes of cigars, I might as well just eat a gun. It's a wonderful thought, but it's just not practical. I can't get the boxes I need that they make all the time. And that's one of the other things that really baffles me about all of these new launches at this year's trade show is I just don't even understand how they can possibly execute these things. I mean, all the printers are, running, 3 to 5 months behind. The box guys are, I mean, look, the guy I get my Sin Compromiso boxes made by, I used to have to give him orders 4 months in advance, and I have to give them orders 8 months in advance.
Wow.
So I'm really shocked by how much new is out there. So it's going to be really, look, maybe they're all smarter than me and they've got better connections than me, and God bless them. But I think this is a really challenging environment to try to launch a lot of new stuff.
So speaking of smart, that's a good segue into my point question of the day. So as a fellow engineer, all right.
I was never actually an engineer. I hired engineers. They worked for me.
You understand though business process. When you got into the cigar business, both at Drew Estate and now on your own, have you implemented any efficiency process improvements that you would say were unique to the industry based on what you saw and how they did business and how they cured, how they roll, how they, just some examples?
No, why would I do that? Hire me, buy me out. Why would I share that with people?
Because you are Steve Saka. Share information.
I share a lot of information, but look, there are things that I do that are unique. And I think that, look, we all basically take weeds and roll them in tubes. Everything is brown and round. There's, what separates one product from another product? I mean, I listen to your commercials, right? You could have inserted any brand name in those commercials, and those commercials would be perfectly fine, right? Because that's essentially what we all say about our products, right? We all use the best. We all have the most talented. We all, you know what I mean? So in the end, the consumer gets to determine where they spend their money. So the cigar itself has to ultimately speak for itself. And I know you've heard that a million times, but it is the reality of it. And there's so many brands that you're competing against. You need for the consumer, separate of all the language and, all the marketing and how many times my fat head is on a podcast or whatever ads I buy, they've got to feel some sort of extra value in what they're getting when they smoke that. Okay. And there are things that separate really great cigars from good cigars, that separate them from mediocre cigars. But we sell all the cigars as though they're really great cigars. I mean, nobody's ever said this is a mediocre cigar, but you know what? For $8, pretty good deal. You're gonna get what you deserve for $8. That's just not the shtick. So you need for the product to be different. Ultimately, those are kind of the little inherent secrets that you have. Like I have developed a very unique way of blending cigars over the years that I think is the most efficient, that gets you to the best results. And it's really, and you can just ask the guys at Hoya, they'll tell you they've never seen anyone do it the way I do it. Now, is the way I do it the best in the world? I don't know whether it's the best in the world. I just know that I'm satisfied with the results, and I'm satisfied with the sales that are coming after I do what I do. So yeah, there's some things that I kind of keep close to the vest. I mean, it's
did Hoya adopt that process?
There have been some things. There have been, again, I think it's better that you ask Juan Martinez this, but I think he would say that yes, they have learned some things from me. But let me say this, vice versa, I have learned some things from them too. Right? I mean, you always learn. I mean, that's part of it. When you get to the point that you actually think you know everything, you're in trouble, right? And you do also understand, typically, the more you know, the more you realize how little you know. You know what I mean? It's kind of this really weird thing. The more expert you are in a field, you actually start to understand how little you actually know and how much more there still is to learn. And I try to embrace that. I mean, I try to be as self-critical as I can. The problem that I have to sometimes check myself on is you can be too self-critical that you don't enjoy any of the successes that you're currently having.
Very true.
You know what I mean?
Very true.
And that's not good either, because it's just not good for your mental psyche. And the other thing too is you got to be careful not to be too arrogant a fuck. You know what I mean? Because that's not appealing to anyone. But yet you also want to be confident in your work. But look, I'd be lying. I'm always apprehensive when anything new is dropping. I'm always like, I wonder how consumers are going to perceive this. Are they going to be satisfied? Are they going to be happy with their purchase? And, and as we make more and sell more, look, I see problems in my own line all the time. We do not make the perfect cigar. It doesn't exist. Right. Cigars are handmade out of an organic material. There are some things that are just so beyond our control that even when you do everything perfect, there's always going to be 2% of the cigars that are going to be subpar. There's going to be something not right with them, no matter what you do. And the sad part for consumers is often these things run in batches where it'll be a whole box, or it'll be multiple cigars inside of a box. And the only thing that I can do as a company to alleviate that is warranty the cigars, which I think we're probably the most proactive of all the companies. We are generous with people because I figure we ask them to pay more. And as a result, I expect them to get better. And as a result, we try to provide better customer service. I am beginning to wonder, how is this long-term sustainable? Because, this year we're going to make 1.8 million cigars. I mean, that's a lot of cigars. That's not a little tiny production anymore. That's a real number. And it just means that if I know that 1% to 2% are never going to be right, that means that this year there's going to be like 30,000 cigars that I wouldn't be happy with if I bought them and I had smoked them. Now I'm happy to warranty them, but then you got to deal with how do you fulfill all of those warranty issues. So far, I think we've done a pretty good job, but not flawlessly. But I think most consumers, as a cigar consumer, we also understand that not all cigars are going to be perfect. You're going to get some clunkers along the way. It's part and parcel of being a handmade cigar smoker. If you don't want any clunkers, well, you got to smoke cigarettes. You got to smoke mass market cigars. Those things come off a machine. They're engineered products, right? They're not this. So I think that most cigar smokers understand the difference between the occasional problem versus the regular occurrence. And they tend to buy the brands that give them the rare problems, but it doesn't matter what it is. Davidoff, Opus X, Padron, you're going to get some cigars that are not going to be right, that are not going to draw well, in all of those brands. And we're not exempt from that either. I mean, we can only strive to do the best that we possibly can. Luckily for me, up until probably just the last couple of years, most of my cigars are being smoked by really experienced cigar smokers. And they already kind of have I always say that I just know that in the beginning, when you first start smoking cigars, you just don't even know what's good or bad. Your palate hasn't even developed yet. You're kind of learning as you go along. You don't really have a sense. And when you think about the fact that, like, let's say you even are smoking 3 cigars a week. Well, 3 cigars a week, that's what? I mean, at the end of the year, that's 160 cigars, 170. I mean, it's nothing.
Right.
It's like, I mean, it's such a small snapshot. You know what I mean? That it's too early. That's why for me, I think that probably our best customers, they're the ones that have been smoking for 10, 15, 20 years, that have tried hundreds of blends and tons of different cigars. And they kind of have already established a benchmark, as to what is really great versus what's good versus what's subpar. And that helps a lot. It makes a difference. And look, I can tell you right now, as a consumer, if I'm a young consumer and I start smoking cigars like ours, kind of ruins them on a lot of other products.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. I mean, there are a lot of brands out there that they probably would have fallen in love with and probably would have fallen out of love with over time. But it's kind of like, man, if you're smoking in our caliber of cigar, you're there. It's a question of whether you like the flavor or you don't like the flavor.
Right.
Okay, that's a totally separate issue. But quality-wise, material-wise, construction-wise, consistency-wise, you're not going to get. There's no better. You're there, and it's tough. And I think that's one of the reasons why. I think it's one of the reasons why we've really grown so much. Is I think that consistency factor. We have a lot of people that smoke our cigars all the time, where we're like really a serious part of their rotation. And look, I'm genuinely thankful for it. I mean, that is the goal, but I mean, it's
So you get to 1 million cigars. It's like
1.8. Don't cut me off.
1.8.
Yeah.
1.8. I'm very sorry. So I had another couple of questions from the audience again. Erica Everett once again chimed in. She wanted to know, when you are procuring tobacco, can you tell when it's still on the stalk if something is exceptional? Or do you have to wait until it's fermented to know you have something special?
No, what you can tell when it's on the stalk is you can tell whether it's got, good oil, good texture, good structure. So, I mean, it's kind of like when you're judging and this is not my analogy. This is from Daniel Nunez, who used to be the master blender and former president of General Cigar. It's kind of like a horse. You're looking at these young racehorses, and you can see the young racehorses that have potential, but then you have to work them. You know what I mean? So not everything that has potential ultimately turns out to be the winner. But if it doesn't have potential, then you're really kind of wasting your time. So you're looking for things coming out of the fields and coming out of the barns that you see that potential in, where you go, oh, yeah, this is something that I really think I can do something with. There's a reason to put the effort and the time, and the other thing, the dollars, because the dollars are a really big one, into it. So yeah, you can separate the wheat from the chaff, but you're not guaranteed that the wheat's going to give you the results that you want. But
Right.
if you buy good tobacco out of the field, it may not become what you were hoping it would become, but it isn't a dog either. You know what I mean? If you treat it well and you train it well, going back to the horse analogy, okay, maybe it's not going to win you the Kentucky Derby, but guess what? It's still going to be quite good, and you're going to find a way to utilize it and to execute a nice product for your consumers. But yes, you can judge a lot when it's in the field. And a lot of what you can judge too is not just how it looks in the field, but just how the farmer operates. How do they run their crews? You know, how do they do their harvest? How do they do their stringing to put it up in the barns? I mean, there's a lot of little cues that you can look for that can tell you an awful lot about an operation separate of just looking at tobacco. Because if people do things right, things tend to go correct more often. You know what I mean? And when people are sloppy, they tend to get more lucky, you know? So there's a lot of things that you look for. And the other thing you look for too is you have relationships. And
That's key in this industry, or any industry,
absolutely
but
key,
this
but
industry extremely.
but
important.
you know who does what and who does this and who's really good at that, who's really good at that, who really isn't as good at this particular thing, and you try to utilize the people that are best at something as being the source for that particular item. You know, you don't just end up saying, hey, I do everything here. Okay, because if you just do everything there, that's a very limiting factor. It really cuts you out of a lot of talent and a lot of opportunity. And it's one of the reasons why I've always kind of I like getting special tobaccos grown for me, but I like working with particular farmers. I wouldn't do that with everybody. And it's not other farmers aren't really good, but I don't necessarily have the same relationship with them. Where do I fall in the pecking order? I mean, Nestor Placencia is not going to grow me a custom crop. It ain't happening. Okay. The man makes more money before I drink my espresso in the morning, right? Than I do in a whole year. So, I mean, no, Nestor is not going to grow me something exclusive. But hey, this little farmer in Condega, he's got his little 4 manzanas. He used to work over there. You know, I have an agronomist that I can send over there that's really experienced to stay on top of him. That's somebody that I can work with. I have to fit things within my own scale too.
Okay. Now, one last question from the audience, and then Q, I know you had a couple of more questions. Peter Ganese would like to know, what's the oldest cigar in your humidor?
Right now, maybe 60 years.
60 years?
Yeah, I think so. I think I have let me think about this. Yeah, I think I have I have a few boxes of Romeo and Julieta Habanos that are about 60 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, not the oldest cigar I ever had. I used to have a pair of cigars that were from 1898, but I smoked those on the what was it called, Y2K. So I wanted to say I smoked a cigar that was 100 years old, and I could have smoked them in 1998, but I wasn't exactly sure the date because I knew they were produced in 1898 through 1889 and 1899. So I waited the extra couple years just to be sure they were at least 100 years old. But yeah,
Nice.
I have a couple 6-year-old boxes, and then I have a few other like pre-embargo boxes. So I can't even remember when the embargo was. 63,
60, 62, 63. Yeah.
62, 63.
Forever.
So, wow, I guess everything. I guess I have more than I realized. No, I guess I have some that are over 70 years old, because then I have quite a few that are over 60 years old. Huh. Let me say this: they all taste like nothing.
Yeah, I was gonna say they kind of
They're like
mellow
paper.
down.
No,
Yeah.
it's not even mellowed down. It's like you might as well be smoking a dryer sheet. There's nothing. I
Oh.
mean, they're just, they're like, well, that's not even a good example. Rice paper maybe is a better example. Yeah, no, there's zero flavor in any of them.
Wow. Q, you had some questions.
So, Steve, I did a little bit of research, did a little bit of background on you. So, me being prior service Air Force myself, I know that you are prior service Navy.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your service probably more than my service, but
So you start smoking when you went into the stateroom of a ship that you were on, correct?
yeah, I actually started smoking. I started smoking on the deck. There was a senior chief gunner who was a cigar smoker, and he got me into it. But he smoked really cheap, crappy cigars. And my operations officer, Walter Laird, he one day invited me into his stateroom and said, "Hey, I see you smoking those really bad cigars. Just here, let me give you some real cigars so you know what you're supposed to be tasting, and stop smoking that junk that senior's giving you." So that's kind of what kicked it off for me, was Walter Laird having pity on an enlisted dude trying to get me on the right path before I went down the wrong way. So God bless you, Walter Laird.
While you were on that ship, did the love and the passion for the cigars grow as you traveled around?
No, not really. I mean, at that point, I was just smoking cigars. It was really after I started really getting into cigars. Like my first real box of cigars I bought, I think, was probably in 1988, where I bought like my first box, and I remember it was a box of Fuente Hemingways. That was the first whole box of cigars that I bought. And I got out of the Navy in 89. And it was when I got out of the Navy in 89 that I actually started to really get into cigars. And so I was took me about 2 or 3 years, I think, before I really went down the rabbit hole. So by the time I got to like 91, 92, I was pretty much full-fledged, like total cigar geek junkie. And then I just happened to be at the right place at the right time, because, they started writing more cigar stuff. The Cigar Aficionado got launched, I think, in the fall or winter of 92. And it just kind of led to all of that. And it also worked out well for me because I started to make some money, so I could afford to indulge my cigar habit, and I could also afford to travel. So I was traveling to the Dominican and Honduras and Cuba back in the early 90s. I mean, my first trip to Nicaragua was like in 1993, right after Ortega got voted out and Chamorro went to become president. So I started traveling then. And then I totally fell really, really hard. It's hard to explain. I mean, to the point that it was just obsessive, unhealthily obsessive. You know what I mean? And I went through this huge Habanos phase, and I went through this huge collector phase, and it's really what kind of, then I kind of did what Jimmie does today. I started an internet website, and I was really doing it to have a tax write-off for all the money I was spending on my cigars and cigar travels. I never intended to make any money, and I didn't. And that kind of led to my first real job in the cigar business was working for Lou Rothman at JR Cigar. And it's been downhill ever since. So yeah, I mean, it's really, I still, look, for me, cigars are essentially integral to my life. I mean, they've really just been such a constant for me now for well over 3 decades. I'm different though about it now. I'm not as romantic. I'm a bit more jaded. Okay. And part of that's because I've spent so much time behind the curtain, and that does, and look, everything that's miserable in my life is because of cigars too. All the work and the problems and the price increases and the crazy travel and the problems with this factory and the problems with this tobacco. I mean, it never ever stops. So for me, it's kind of sad, because in some ways, being so vested in the business end of cigars, it does kind of suck some of the joy out of it too. It's not, I just know. So like when Cigar Magazine was around, I was the guy that wrote all the cigar tasting notes and all the reviews. I fucking hated that job. Every single issue, I had to like smoke 40 cigars. And I had to write tasting notes on 40 cigars. And out of the 40 cigars, maybe there were 3 or 4 in the mix that I actually would have chosen to smoke. You know what I mean? I'm of my own volition. But look, had to publish the magazine, had to have the tasting notes, had to write them. And so, I mean, you lose some of that joyfulness that cigars do deliver. And that's why sometimes I've just got to sit back a little and kind of, you know,
Take a
say, wow,
breath.
this is actually kind of amazing, you know. And it's you have to, sometimes you have to think about how blessed you are. And sometimes when you're in the middle of it all, it's really hard to do that, you know.
So let me take another short break. I'm going to shout out what's new in news and reviews on Stogie Press. And then when we come back, we'll let Q ask a couple of questions, and we'll see if we can wrap things up. So this week, Stogie Press, 3 reviews. First one, company called Didier Cigars. Didier Cigars based is, this one is called the LE. I got this actually from Erica Everett from Executive Cigars Sanford when I was presenting them their award for their lounge. And this cigar here is a San Andreas Mexican wrapper with a Cuban seed, Habano 2000, and Esteli Nicaraguan fillers. This is a $23 cigar. I believe it came out in 21. Rich flavor profile with chocolate and cream, had some chocolate evolved into dark chocolate. You had these espresso notes. It had a nice floral, almost Cuban-esque front end to it with some fruit. Had this fruity jam. That fruit sometimes get into that fruity jam, like on the toasted bread. It was kind of just got into that. So I was really enjoying this cigar. Nicely constructed, beautifully rolled and bunched. Had a little bit of a jag going through it here, but it kind of found its way. Had carried a really nice ash, really long ash on this one. Very decent burn cone, and then comes down. So this one here, we came in with a 94 on. The next one we looked at was the Drunk Chicken cigar. This is my second Drunk Chicken cigar review. This one's called the Fat Hen Gordo. And the Fat Hen, this is a stubby, fat cigar. This one came in an 88. This is a Nicaraguan Habano with an Ecuadorian binder and a Dominican Republic and Ecuadorian filler. This is a $12 cigar. The flavor profile wasn't as rich. It was cocoa and cream, fruit, leather, had some leather notes on it, some pepper, spice, and woodiness. It just kind of meandered its way through. It comes in 3 different vitolas. There's a Gordo, which is the one I reviewed, was a 6x60. There's a Shorty, which is even shorter. It was a 4x60. And then they just came out with a Torpedo, which is a 6.5x52. A little bit of a veiny wrapper to it. The bunching was okay. Had a couple loose spots in it. Burn wise, not bad. Started getting a flaky ash on it as it burned through. Had a little bit of an off burn as it came down. So this one came in 88. You know, it really didn't pick much up. Once it got to the midway point, it just kind of stayed there. You know, it just really didn't, you know, light me up, make me really want to say, God, I gotta have more of these. And then the last one was the Osvaldo Morales. Now this one, I had smoked a sample of this at the Heritage Festival in Ybor City, and it was fresh, it was new, and I wasn't impressed. But he gave me another one at TPE, and it was sitting in my humidor for about close to 6 months, 5 months, whatever it's been since I picked it up. And this one, he said, this one is ready. And yeah, he was spot on with ready. Okay, so this one is a San Andreas wrapper with a Piloto Cubano binder, an Esteli Nicaraguan Pennsylvania Piloto Cubano, and T13. T13 is a hybrid leaf. He makes these at El Artista. That's one of the hybrid leaves that Ram grows. So this one here gave me some nice caramel and cream, earth and floral, had a nice leatheriness to it, had natural sweetness coming through, really balancing things out as it went through, pepper, spice, and some more of that toasted cracker note. He gave a little explanation here about how he got into the business, how he got himself back into it, I should say. You can read that. It comes in one Vitola. It's a 5x50. It's an oval box press. So if you look down here, it's kind of a strange shape. This is the same shape. If this looks familiar, it should look very similar to the El Artista Buffalo 10. It's the same press that they used for that. So burn wise, not bad, very nice. Did drop to a flat burn cone. Did that a couple of times on me, but thin burn line, fairly crisp. Had a little jag to it here and there. I really enjoyed this. I think this cigar hit my spot very nicely. So they are, I understand, at PCA coming out with another one of these in a Toro. He said this might have been a unicorn in the case of what the Vitola was, but the blend will be the same in the Toro. From a news perspective, I'm not going to get into all the news articles. I'll just run through them real quick. It's PCA time, so my inbox gets flooded, and sometimes I stress myself out at night. I smoke like 4 cigars at a night trying to get something done because I'm so stressed out getting news out. But Ace Prime announced the Mas Igneous, and this is a collaboration with a winery. So you could check that one out. That's coming out in the PCA trade show. Foundation cigars. Now, Nick, your brother Nick, has just been pounding with cigars. He's come out with numerous cigars, different line extensions, and some new blends. This is a new blend here, the Olmec. Okay. So you could check that out. It's kind of celebrating mother culture and Mesoamerica. So, Nick is all about that. ATL Cigars has updated their 3 cigar lines. They made some changes. They also made a brand change in the Libertad. They kind of walked away from the Libertad and renamed it to the Phi, because I guess there was some things dealing with Villiger had also a Libertad, so they kind of changed that from La Libertad to Phi. So they got a little branding change, and also they're talking about some major milestones that they've hit as far as the retails that they've been able to get into. So they're celebrating that at PCA. Crown Heads is welcoming back Tim Ozigener. And they're launching a family line of cigars for them. So for those that don't know who Tim was, he was formerly the CAO at International, and he spent 16 years there serving as president. So he's come back. He's coming back into the game. So we all welcome Tim back. Plasencia announced their Alma Forte Eduardo 1. It was going to be showcasing at PCA. That's going to be a Toro box press, 6 1/4 by 54. Casa Cuevas has got a new cigar out called the Sangre Nueva. That's going to be coming out in PCA. So Casa Cuevas continuing to do what their mission was. This one here, I understand, has been blended by their son, who has now come in, Louis Jr., I think it was, came in. And so they're doing some really good work there. STG, otherwise known as General, they don't do PCA, but they've been flooding the inbox now with things. So they've come out now. They announced the return of the Vilio, which is an old brand that they've kind of rebirthed. Stallone, Nicaragua is going to showcase the Nino at PCA. and they're also offering some amazing deals. So if you go to PCA, check out the Stallone Nicaragua booth. German engineered cigars. So this is a brand that not many people may be familiar with, but they're coming out with a new program where they've come up with a blend. They have one Vitola, and they're asking their fans to pick the second Vitola. You can go to a shop, you could buy a package, and you could try the different ones and vote which one you want. This is becoming a new thing in the industry. I'm seeing they're not the first to do this. I know that Southern Draw did the same thing with the Picadillos. They put them out, vote, see which one you want to go with. So bringing in fan and consumer input into what should be sold. Espinosa has announced they have 2 10-year anniversary cigars, one for Espinosa and one for La Zona. So they're celebrating 2 10-year anniversaries. They're going to be showcasing those at PCA. La Flor Dominicana has announced the Solus. This is a Lito Gomez Jr. project. So young Lito has worked on this with his father. So they're going to be celebrating that. So you can check out this new one from La Flor Dominicana. STG also announced their Latitude Zero signature to honor Ecuador's tobacco growing regions. And Espinosa has also come out with this year's rendition of the Warhead 8. This would be the 8th rendition of the Warhead. This one's going to be actually expressed in a 6x60 box press Gordo. That ought to be fun. And I believe that, and Alec Bradley has confirmed that they are coming out with something new. They did something quirky. They put in all this pixelated pictures, so you don't know what it is, but they're coming out with something. They've confirmed that they will have something there. And then it goes on. I think we're just about done. J.C. Newman announced that they're offering a class in hand rolling cigars. So if you go to the J.C. Newman factory now, you could take a class there. They have over the next couple of months, they're offering classes on hand rolling. So if you're in the Ybor City area, down here in Florida, you're on vacation, you want to do something cool, I'd recommend going there and having a good time. That's a great place to visit, the J.C. Newman factory. And Rockefeller Cigars has announced an extension to their Nicaraguan Habano line. They're coming out with a Lonsdale, so you'll be able to see those. And Foundation announced that they've come out with the High Class Castle Centiar. I think this was last week's news, so we've completed the news cycle. So with that, we'll come back to Steve.
Guess I was on the screen. People could see my reactions as you was reading it. I thought I was anonymous at that point.
No, why? What was your reactions? I wasn't paying attention.
My reaction is that proves my point.
Yes.
Just that laundry list. And honestly, Jimmie, I think you missed about 10 other things that I know.
Yeah, I don't.
Other websites. I mean, it's an absurd amount of stuff. It's just so crazy. I don't know. I don't know where the consumer's supposed to go. I don't know how the retailer's supposed to figure out what to put on their shelves and not put on their shelves. I don't know what the retailer's going to kick off their shelves to make space for these things. I find it just too much. I find the whole concept of crowdsourcing just stupid. I mean, it's like, are you a painter or are you not a painter? Do you paint a picture, or are you a character artist that just, draws what somebody does with a banana in it? I mean, I just don't even understand the concept to me.
And it's a growing thing right now.
It's growing because it's lazy, is what it is. Okay, it's a lazy approach, as far as I'm concerned. It's a gimmick. It's like, and I'm having a hard time. Look, I just think, this is my personal opinion, I think this is going to be a bloodbath for many people at this PCA trade show. And I may be amongst those that are in the bloodbath, okay? I'm not excluded from it. I'm part of the industry, but this is going to be just the amount, just the breadth and depth of what's new is just perplexing to me. I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around it. I really am. And look, we'll see what happens. I mean,
You know, and I guess I would ask the question, and I think I asked this to somebody the other week, are these cigars coming out because you couldn't get them out of Nicaragua because of the pandemic last year? These things been laying around for a while, and now it's
not only
time to get
laying
them. You
around,
didn't
I
have
think
boxes,
I
you
think
didn't
it's a
have
combination
bands.
of you feel pressured to release new because look, new is typically easy sales, right?
Mhm.
I know if we launch a new brand, we're going to sell X number of thousands of boxes, almost guaranteed. Okay. The problem is that would be true if there were so many new things, but when there's this many new things. So last year, the numbers showed that we imported 465 million cigars. Right. That was a
Big
COVID,
numbers, big
huge
numbers.
stupid numbers. We typically do somewhere around 325 million, 335 million a year. There's no doubt that there was an increase in smoking during the COVID period when people were at home and they have more time on their back deck, right? It's just simply the way it was for most people. And most people had more income. I think that most people in our business, if you were to ask them and they were to be honest with you, this year is much, much slower for most companies. There's a few companies that are like doing really, really well, but most companies, they're not having an easy go of it. And that doesn't surprise me because you can't have a repeat of a 465 million unit year. That's just, we don't smoke as Americans 465 million cigars a year. So you're going to end up having a glut in the marketplace and retailer shelves are already full. And now you're going to have all of this. And I don't even know as a consumer, I know me typically every year, I look at what's coming out new and I'll see like 4 or 5 things that'll kind of catch my interest and I'll go out of my way to try that. But how am I going to go out of my way to try? I don't know if there's even a less than 300 things to try. I mean, it's like, it's just the number is just mind blowing to me. It really is.
Erica Everett. I love having a shop on, you know, a shop manager on this chat. So she says, here's the thing. If someone has 2 new cigars, we sort of take a look at it and say, okay, which one of the other cigars in that line do we pull?
Of course, that's what
No,
happened.
hold on. Then she goes, well, we actually don't do it that way. The way we do it, it's even more excruciating. It's painful for them. It's very painful because, you know, what do you do? I mean, if you have a cigar, if you have a $9 cigar in the market and you're new and you want to put it on a shelf, the shop owner has to decide, will that $9 cigar sell more $9 cigars than the one that I already have for $9 on the shelf?
Right.
All right. And if it doesn't, why do I need it? Because I'm selling these $9 cigars. If I have a $9 cigar that smokes like a $12 cigar, will it displace enough of the $12 cigars that I'm still
I don't
making
think
my
that's
money?
typically really a worry, Jimmy, because typically consumers kind of stay in their price point.
Mm-hmm.
So the guys that are $12 guys, they rarely go and smoke the $9 goes as good as the $12.
Right. And the shop's not going to push the 9
I think the
because
harder part is you look at most of these new products, and because of where we are inflation wise, most all these things are around $12 to $13. Well,
Right.
what that means is it means that they've got to convince a retailer that they should bring that in instead of just selling more Sober Mesa Brules, which are selling fantastic. You know what I mean? I mean, and look, I have the same fight internally. If we launch a whole new line, we're at the point now that a retailer is probably going to say, hey, Saka, I give you enough space in the shop already. What brand of yours do you want me to take off the shelf? And in fact, while I see all this new stuff, I'm actually of a totally different mindset. I'm actually going to be getting rid of cigars over the next year. I'm going to start trimming things down, making them a little easier for the retailers to deal with. Look, when we were a young company, we needed 8 different regular Sober Mesa. The first year we launched Mi Querida, I think we had like 7 in there. I don't need that anymore, right? because I now have so many other brands and things to sell that serve a different segment. And I'm going to take stuff like, I can tell you, like an Umbagog. I'm going to get rid of two sizes of Umbagog. And it's not because they don't sell, they sell fantastic. But I know that for my retailer, they would sell just as many of another size that's slightly more popular. And it would actually end up being better for them. And that's the thing that I think you as a manufacturer and a brand owner, you always have to think about your retail partners and how this is going to work for them. Because if it doesn't work for them, it ultimately isn't going to work for you either. They're your conduit to the consumer. It has to be a relationship that works for all the parties in the cycle, because there's no way a retailer is going to be able, they'll be lucky if they bring in 4 new things, 5 new things. And look, summer's kind of built in. You're going to bring in the new Alma. If you're a foundation account, you're going to bring in probably Nick's new stuff, right? If you're probably going to give Tim Osganer a courtesy order, because you have a relationship with Tim from the CAO days, and hey, you want to give Tim a shot. You know what I mean? So there's like certain ones that are like almost like are going to look, if Padron and Fuente do have their collaboration at the trade show, well, that's going to be a must order for the retailers that stock Padron and Fuente, which is almost all of them, right? So that's a guarantee. So now where does all of these other companies fit? And whose shelf space are they going to steal? Is a retailer going to give up shelf space from a growing brand like ourselves to try one of these untested brands? It's a really tough thing. And that's why I always, and I say this all the time and nobody ever listens to me, but I'm going to say it again. If you're a small brand owner, I don't want to discourage you, but the best approach is not to go nationwide. The best approach is for you to make something and start regionally, where you can get into your vehicle every day and you can drive 8 hours, 12 hours in any direction and start building relationships with the local retailers that are close to you and start to get to know them, start to get to know their consumers, and just try to grow from that. Because to try to launch nationwide is such a tremendous challenge. It's such an uphill battle. And I mean, the road is littered with the carcasses of people that have been before you. And it's not going to change. And I think this year is going to maybe I think it might be one of the most brutal years ever. And I hate to be so down, but it's just simple math.
I unless we could sustain 450 million cigars, and I'll believe that there are those that during a pandemic were new because their buddies were smoking them and they were able to sit down and they got into the culture. So some of them are still going to be there. But I agree with your statement that says you don't have the time of the day to sit there and smoke a cigar. You're not smoking 3 cigars a day because you're in the office again.
Right.
You don't have the opportunity to do that. And like I said, you're not getting, you don't have extra stimulus money. You're not spending it on extra things. Right. Inflation is up. You're filling your gas tank up. It's costing you bundles more.
Or you think about it a year and a half ago, you were putting no gas in your car because you weren't allowed to go anywhere.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's so different. And now it's costing you more than double of what it used to cost. Mm-hmm. Near double, I should say. I mean, I think this is going to be a really challenging environment. And look, it's going to be challenging for me too. I mean, it's not like I get a free pass here, but I mean, it's gonna be a really interesting trade show. And you know how this works. We're all gonna go to the trade show and we're all gonna say we did fantastic, right? Because that's what we all say. Because what else can you say? You can't say, well, nobody bought my shit, because that's just, you might as well just. But the reality is, and I think the other thing that these new brand owners don't understand, if you go to a trade show in the best of times and you open 18 to 20 accounts, that is a home run. Okay. That is a home run. Okay. And it does not even come close to covering your costs. I was sitting with Dave Garofalo today, and we were talking about this. And the first year he went to sell Atabey and Byron, he wrote 6 orders.
And
guess how many orders he wrote the second year? 6 orders.
Right.
Okay. So that's the thing. It takes such a long-term commitment and the ability to weather it through, and to have the cash wherewithal, and to have the ability. And I think this is going to be a very educational experience. And regretfully, I think it's not going to be a happy one for too many people. And look, I'd love to be wrong, but I don't think I am.
Well, based on your resume, there.
Yeah, you read what it said about me on LinkedIn. I mean, come on.
we probably get to vote with you and listen, because you've done amazing things for this industry. You know, from your start at Drew Estate all the way to now with Dunbarton Trust. My hard question for you is, why aren't you a sponsor of the show?
Because if Jimmie has asked me in the past, he didn't ask me 4 more times. The truth is, I would be a sponsor of the show if the money isn't stupid. I mean, I try to sponsor most of the shows. It's just, look, I'm super busy. And the thing is, if you need like graphics from me or something, you're waiting forever. If you need a check from me, that's easy to do. But the other thing too is, and what I always tell most of the people is, they have to come up with some sort of hook, something that's unique or different, a segment. So I kind of put it back on them to come up with something and pitch it to me. Like this year, I'm sponsoring the Blind Man Puff guys at the PCA. They made this really beautiful video trailer, you know, interviews brought to you by Dunbarton Tobacco Trust. I didn't have to do anything. I just said, yeah, great, I'll do that. I'll send you a check. I mean, you have to make it so like stupid easy on me, because I'm just so busy. Because you got to understand, I'm everything, man. I'm the head bottle washer, right? I'm the guy that has to go to the dump with the pallets, and you know, I just there's only so much time in a day. So yeah, I'd be happy to sponsor a show if Jimmie isn't asking for dumb prices and he makes it easy on me.
There you go, Q. I'll put you on that task.
Copy that.
All right, we'll have that conversation. Hey, do you still have some time, Steve?
Yeah, look, I'm just sitting here smoking a cigar.
All right, so here's what we do with our last part of the show. First of all, I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank my sponsors for sponsoring. I want to thank all the people for viewing. I'm going to give you the last word in a moment, and then right after that, I'm going to stop the live feed in just a little bit, but I'm inviting anybody who wants to join this to come on board. All right. Fill in the room. That's our new thing we're doing. We're going to kind of do it after her.
That's kind of a good idea.
With the guest.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll give you the last word first.
Me?
Yeah.
Have I not said enough words already? Good God.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do like to talk, Steve.
Yeah, I'm a talking machine. You know, I think the thing, if I had to say anything, you know, about us as a company, I'm really proud of the products that we're making. I think we're doing really exceptional work, but I'm even more proud of my team. We have a really small team, but it's really, really, really top shelf. And and part of it's too, we've been very careful. You know, we've tried to control our growth, and we let a lot of opportunities go by the wayside, a lot of opportunities. But I know that I think it's in our best long-term interest. And I also think it's in the best long-term interest of the customers who support us. You know, we can't do everything for everybody. You know, give me another 50 years and maybe, but you know, I am quite content with where we are right now. I think we're in a good place, and it really has a lot to do with the team at Dunbarton. It really does. They're tremendous. I mean, look, I get the credit because I'm the fat head guy that's always talking, but the truth is, it wouldn't be possible without their contribution. It's just simply the way it is.
All right. Well, thank you, Steve.